Dozens of Iranian lawmakers chanted "Death to America" as they met in parliament.
The Iranian and the US governments can't stand each other.
The United States will immediately impose additional punishing economic sanctions on the Iranian regime.
The US has a superior military compared to Iran. So why would the US or any of its allies fail if they were to try to invade Iran? Iran's mountains make it very hard for any physical invasion. Stretching almost 1,000 miles, the Zagros Mountains shield Iran from any invasions. Saddam Hussein, Iraq's ruler at the time, realized this during his attempted invasion of Iran in 1980. Iran's northern borders with Armenia and Azerbaijan are also defended by the Alborz Mountains. So why do mountains prove to be a valuable defense for any country? Well, mountains make it very difficult for the enemies to transport supplies. This is because of the lack of roads in high altitude. Narrow passages in mountains mean the defenders can easily set up ambushes too. Alexander the Great was only able to take over the Persian Empire by defeating the Persians in Iraq, not in Iran. Today's Iranian armed forces have actually bolstered up the defences by the mountains to further deter any attacks. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about geography, but you still might be wondering, is the region of Iran valuable? And the short answer is absolutely. Iran's oil and gas fields are mostly located in the southern western region. And speaking of oil and gas, the Strait of Hormuz plays a big role in their transportation. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow passage of water right here and is only 30 miles wide. A third of all liquefied natural gas and a fifth of the global oil supplies travel through the Strait of Hormuz. It's the only sea passage from the Persian Gulf to the open ocean. This means the Strait of Hormuz is a choke point on the world's entire energy supply. As ships containing oil and gas pass through, the width decreases to just a couple of miles. There are 8 islands within the area, 7 of which contain Iranian armed forces. And whenever Iranian ships travelling around the world have been detained because, for example, they've breached sanctions, Iran retaliates. Iran isn't afraid to tackle more influential countries too. With Iranian forces in this region, Iran's regime have threatened to blockade the strait. Superpowers like the US are aware of this threat and have deployed navy in the strait. So if a blockade was to occur, it'd be likely that it wouldn't last too long. But the reality is, any dispute or blockade would cause huge disruption to the energy supply. This would mean even higher oil and gas prices, increasing inflation. Currently, Iran is surrounded by its enemies. Worse for Iran, its enemies are backed by the United States. This makes them even more dangerous to Iran. So how has Iran responded to this? One of Iran's strategies is to prevent enemy forces from entering their territory, and they're doing so by developing more advanced ballistic missiles. Their long-range missiles are able to hit targets up to 2,000 kilometers away. That's still less than half the range of a US ballistic missile, but it's still more than enough to deter any enemies. Over the years, Iran has become better and better in producing military technology. They're now producing their own surface-to-air missiles as well as advanced radar systems. 2016 saw Iran buy the Russian SA-20C air defense system. This provided Iran with its first capability to defend itself against a modern air force. Since the war in Ukraine, Iran and Russia have strengthened their relationship. Iran has committed to selling their drones and medium-range missiles to Russia. And if a powerhouse like Russia is relying on Iran military technology, it means that Iran should be considered as a reliable weapon manufacturer. As part of their strengthened relationship, Iran has decided to buy Russian fighter jets. This means that in the event of an attack on Iran, the Russians will most likely be supporting them. Currently, the US are imposing sanctions on both Russia and Iran, so Russia will see doing business with Iran as nothing to lose. In fact, Russia and Iran have recently agreed to build a new multi-billion-dollar trade route from Eastern Europe to the Indian Ocean. A 3,000 kilometer passage will cover sea, river and rail networks. The aim here is to develop a sanction-free supply chain by completely cutting out the West. Currently, there is no evidence to suggest that Iran holds any weapons of mass destruction. But Iran is accused of possessing enriched uranium, which could be used to make several nuclear weapons. So from everything discussed, it means that no matter how many enemies Iran has, not one of them will realistically look to invade them. If you found this video interesting, then I can guarantee you'll find this next one fascinating.